Welcome back, passengers. You're aboard Long Walk Talks Lost. This is your pilot speaking. My name is David Hensley. I'm the owner and creative director of Long Walk Productions, and I am joined tonight by my two co-hosts,
Robert Bradford,
Cara Hayes.
And we are kicking off Season 2 of Lost with the first 3 episodes, whose titles I've got totally right in front of me. Here we go. Episode 1, Man of Science, Man of Faith. Episode 2, Adrift. And Episode 3, Orientation. Guys, how excited were we to dive back into this after 5 weeks, 6? How long has it been?
It was, I mean, we'd seen each other since then. Obviously, we're all working on a show together, but to actually just, get together, sit down on the couch and turn on Lost again, I'd missed that for the break we took between seasons.
I did too. Like, I didn't know what I was supposed to do with evenings.
Yeah, watching other shows, with our spouses.
Ew, God.
Why would we do that?
Ugh.
So the plan last we discussed for 2024, so that we don't burn ourselves out completely, since we're all in a show together now. I'm going to be directing a show later this year. We all have day jobs. I think the plan this year is to get through seasons 2, 3, and 4, and hold off seasons 5 and 6 for 2026. But, who knows how fast we'll get through these seasons, and if we're like, you know what, fuck it, let's just go ahead and do the rest of the show. So that's the plan for 2024. I hope everyone had some happy holidays, and the new year is starting off right for you. You haven't been in a plane crash on a desert island yet. Robert, why don't we kick things off by you telling the listeners, since this was your glorious idea, what our dinner theme was this week?
So, in honor of the fact that season 1 ends on the cliffhanger of the hatch being blown open, and the first 3 episodes are largely set in and around the hatch, we thought, let's have a meal consisting of foods that are sealed inside metal. So we had canned peas, fruit cocktail, and not just anything, but also just like the cheap off-brand stuff we could find. So Dave scrounged up Diet Dr. Perky as the Dr. Pepper knockoff soda we were all drinking. And then we had a main course of a casserole of Spam and mac and cheese, Kraft mac and cheese.
It was seriously good.
Yeah.
Like, y'all, I do not... I wish I had Spam before, because this was my first time. And I think I scared David because I'm like, man, I want to make some more. And he's like, oh, great.
And Robert, that was your first time having Spam too, right?
In a while. I think I'd had it, way back when as like a lunch thing, but it wasn't a regular thing I'd eaten in a long while.
It was Gina's first time.
Nice. What I always joke when somebody says they've never had Spam before is, "Oh, you were never poor."
No.
It's a staple of low-income households. And it's fucking delicious. It's salty as hell, but I love it.
That's why I liked it.
I had some leftover, fried a few strips with breakfast on Saturday. It was really good.
See, I want to try it fried next because I want to see, like, it get a little crispy.
Mm-hmm. And then slap it on some white bread with a little bit of mayonnaise. Perfection.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll try that too.
It's good stuff.
Yes, it is. All right. So let's get into Season 2, Episode 1, Man of Science, Man of Faith. This is a Jack episode. I didn't write down, I forgot to write down the days on the island, but this picks up the same...
44?
Yeah, because at one point, Desmond asks Locke how long ago the plane crash was, and he says 44.
Yeah, because this episode picks up immediately after Season 1 ended. And these 3 episodes take place over the course of just a few hours.
We get to the morning after the Season 1 finale by the end of Episode 3.
It was a very, very long day/night for our poor Losties.
Yeah, I think that's about 6 episodes covering less than a 24-hour period from when Rousseau shows up in the camp to the next morning.
Holy shit, you're right. Yeah, because the entire 3-part finale was the same day, and this takes place over the course of a few hours. So, wow. Good call. We start with an iWatch, checking in on our various watches again. This time, Desmond. Everybody loves Desmond.
Mm-hmm.
This is our introduction to him with the scene of him and his morning routine, which would imply that he gets up at like 5:30 every morning.
Well, I got to imagine his sleep schedule is just really irregular because he's got to be awake every 108 minutes. Like, even if he just walks over to the computer and hits it in. So he can't have had like a full 8 hours of sleep in years.
Yeah, I can't remember how long he's been alone in that hatch. We'll find out later in the season. But God, imagine not getting more than
A
not
nap.
Basically, yeah, not getting more than 90 minutes of sleep at a time.
We see him inject himself with some kind of medicine out of a cabinet, which could be, as he implies to Locke, against an inoculation against whatever disease he's been told is out there. It also could just be a stimulant, that's just something that is keeping him from going completely insane from
I bet
that
it has
sleep
meth
pattern.
in it.
Yes, Desmond is on meth. That is our fan theory.
I mean, just a little touch of meth.
Just a light dusting of methamphetamines. Now, Cara, confirm something for me. All the ladies love Desmond, right?
Oh, yes.
That's.
I mean, this lady does.
I don't think I've talked to a single woman who's watched Lost who wasn't just in love with Desmond. I think he's neat.
I think what it is that there's just this earnestness to the way that Henry Ian Cusick plays him that, I mean, he's a good-looking guy, but this cast is full of really good-looking people. But I think he just, whether it's like his, intensity when he's under the hatch or his, like, kind of open friendliness when he meets Jack in the flashbacks, there's just this, like, very surface energy to him despite everything he's been through that is just super charming. You get why they brought him back, even though the producers have said he was never supposed to be around for more than a single season. Apparently there was one podcast where they said he wasn't even supposed to reappear after he runs off into the jungle in the third episode. I don't buy that because it's like, obviously you were setting that up, but I can absolutely believe he was supposed to die in the season 2 finale.
And also, where would he go if he wasn't meant to come back?
Just in episode 6, we see
Away.
him finally, he reaches the ocean on the other side, just starts swimming, and that's it.
Yeah.
That would have made for a great background gag.
Maybe he had a hidden raft.
Yeah. Yeah, as something dramatic is happening, like Jack and Kate are yelling at each other, or Jack and Locke, you see a boat, just a little speedboat just going by in the background.
Well, I mean, in addition to kind of the joke you were making about the fact that there's a door to the hatch that nobody noticed, while they're building the raft, there is an actual sailboat elsewhere on the island that they just didn't know about, that Desmond's craft is just parked somewhere.
This is where, I mean, naturally, over the course of one season, they were still setting the rules so that they could break them later. But at one point, Jack says that the hatch is about a half a mile from their camp. So it's been within a half a mile of them this entire time. Season 1 treated it as if Locke and Boone were taking a trek every time they went out there, and this was not just within stumbling distance. So it was like one of the first big inconsistencies, and again, maybe not an inconsistency since season 1 never really established exactly where it was, but I did think that was really strange.
Well, I do have to point out that you guys have completely overlooked the one thing about Desmond that makes him irresistible.
The accent.
Yeah. Hello.
I meant to look this up. Is that Henry Ian Cusick's real dialect?
He is actually Scottish. I'm not sure if he's like playing it up at all because I know it's not like there are different flavors of Scottish accent, but I think that is pretty close to his speaking voice.
Yeah, there's Scottish and then there's Sean Connery.
I mean, yeah.
Well, the show veers heavily into hospital drama as it often does with a Jack episode. It really leans into it hard in this episode with the story of how he fixed Sarah so that she could dance at their wedding, and so that we can introduce her really, really shitty ex-fiance.
Douchebag.
I did not recognize that actor at first, but I looked it up later. Have either of y'all watched Star Trek Strange New Worlds or Star Trek Discovery? Apparently that actor plays Captain Pike on that show. He was Black Bolt in The Inhumans and briefly in Multiverse of Madness.
Holy shit.
He gets his mouth sealed up by Wanda. Yeah, that was Anson Mount is the actor, which does not seem like an actor who would appear in the kind of films that we would usually talk about on this podcast, Anson Mount, but he's had a pretty good career for himself.
Wow.
Okay, well, that opens up some new avenues for us to talk about lost actor-related movies between seasons. Just kidding. I never want to talk about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. But it's through this flashback that we get another one of those character connections that we love so much before they start getting so obnoxious later on, and we find out, oh, everybody's connected in some way. Here we find out that Jack's future wife, Sarah, accidentally killed Shannon's father.
Adam Rutherford.
Adam Rutherford, yeah. And I'm sure that there's no way that she could have possibly known what a fucking snowball she was launching with that car accident, because of that accident, Adam Rutherford died. As a result, his wife, Boone's mother, cut off Shannon's trust, which led Shannon down the rabbit hole of hooking up with unsavory guys that Boone wouldn't approve of, calling Boone for help, him paying those guys off, Shannon and the guy splitting the money, which eventually, and a few years later, led to her going to Australia, Boone having to go to Australia, them having sex, then getting on a plane the next morning and crash landing on the island. If Sarah had not gotten into that car accident, there's a pretty high likelihood that Boone and Shannon would not have been on that island.
Yeah.
And it would have been a fine show without them.
It'd be interesting. I'm sure somebody's charted this, but like, which of the flashback only characters had like the biggest ripple effect? Like, not when like survivors appear in others' flashbacks, but like the person who did the most to like push, not counting like Jacob or anybody, but yeah, I'd be interested to see who, because yeah, like you said, that's a really big snowball from Sarah being a crappy driver.
Yeah, let's. I'm gonna put this into the notes after we're done. Don't let me forget, because yeah, we should track that. Who had the biggest indirect influence on who ended up on the island?
I guess Christian Shepherd is up there for his role in Jack, Ana Lucia, and Sawyer, I guess, because they got drunk together.
And don't forget his daughter.
And
Yep. So
Claire. Sorry, I was like, all of a sudden I was like, oh my god, what's her name?
Claire.
Claire.
Okay, so yeah, we got the season 1 front runner. We got the season 2 front runner here early with Sarah Shepherd. I don't know if they establish her.
yeah, they probably mentioned it at some point in all the yelling during the triage scene. It is interesting that it's not just that Shannon's dad dies, it's that he dies because Jack only can treat one of them. Mm-hmm. That he's the only one in the OR who can do the necessary procedure. He chooses to focus on Sarah instead of Rutherford, and so has to listen as Rutherford dies.
And it's kind of, in a weird way, refreshingly the more down-to-earth aspect of it, because, like, yeah, she was the first one through the door. He was the first one he started treating. It doesn't veer so hard into hospital drama territory that Jack's killing himself to try to save them both. It's like, no, I have to focus on this one person or else they'll both die.
Yeah, he's clearly affected by it, but is also, I mean, it's the kind of thing that as a doctor you have to do. Like, if you can't make that decision, then both patients are going to die.
Yeah, so we get a nice little moment of realism in an episode that features him magically fixing her crushed spine.
Also, a nice step down from the melodrama is we get to see his dad being actually a good dad and mentor. That, like, when Jack talks to Sarah and is basically like, yeah, your spine's broken, you're never going to walk again.
Sucks to be you.
Yeah, there is no good outcome here. You know, his dad takes him aside, doesn't yell at him in front of a patient, but is just like, it would be a good idea to give your patient something positive to hope for. And it's good advice. He's not a jerk in how he gives it. It's one of maybe his first episode where he has just been a purely positive influence on the characters around him.
And, I mean, we also find out that, I don't know how many years before the episode takes place, this is the flashback takes place, but Jack's bedside manner never improved, as Hurley calls them out on the island. Still not great at delivering bad news or lying to people. Later in the episode, we get into the whole drama of how do we get into the hatch, who's going into the hatch, who's going to get there first.
Can I note real quick, by the way, just the end of the Desmond sequence? I love the way that we go from what Desmond's doing to where Jack and Locke are. Like, because you see him line up this kind of telescope mirror thing, and the camera just pans and cuts from mirror to mirror to mirror in this really fun way with the score swelling until it reaches the bottom of the shaft, goes up and spins around to match to where we ended things at season 1. I don't know how often a device like that would actually get used, but it's such a cool cap on the intro.
It seems like a very complicated device, but you know what? That's the Dharma Initiative for you.
Yep. Make the simple things hard.
I meant to point out when we were talking about our food, we're a few episodes away from when we start getting Dharma Initiative branded food that gets airdropped on the island. So that's going to be fun, seeing the Dharma logo plastered on everything, including bottles of scotch.
That had to be such a huge cost saver because do y'all know what, David, I'm sure you know about Greeking, what that is?
I think so, but go ahead and...
So it's this thing where in the background, if somebody's in like a kitchen or at a bar, you don't want to show a bunch of logos of recognizable products because that can get you into legal issues. So Greeking is what you do when you basically slap on a familiar looking but legally distinct logo on every like can of teas or beer bottle or whatever. And so with Lost, it had to be so like refreshing for the production team to just be like, come up with this one design and it goes on everything. Every can, every bottle, every box, this design. And we don't have to make like a knockoff of every conceivable brand that people would expect to see.
I also know filmmakers personally who have had to shoot on location and didn't have the budget to, make up and design new logos, and much less print them on things and take the time to slap them on whatever they go on. The poor man's way is just to turn around the first one in every single row. So in a bar, you just turn every bottle of liquor on the front row around. In like a gas station, you just turn every pack of cigarettes around. Whatever gets the job done and doesn't get you sued is what I say.
Amen.
We get Locke's a little bit of karma, you could call it, for going to such great lengths to blow the hell out of the opening to the hatch and ignoring Hurley's advice when he's lowering Kate down into the hatch, and she starts getting pulled, and his hands get chewed up by that cable.
And it happens again because we get like similar to Locke's trebuchet that he built in season 1. He has this idea that he thinks is really sound in engineering, but he just does a crappy job with it because he tried to, I think, belay it around a couple of trees. One of them gets pulled out of the ground. That Locke has ideas, but really does not think all the way through things that could go wrong.
He did not learn anything from that game of Mousetrap, I'll tell you what. So later in the episode, when it's Jack's turn to go down there, Jack takes time to wrap his hands so that they won't get rope burn. And we all sort of made the same observation, but I think Robert put it the most succinctly. That little instance is a nice reminder that Jack's capable of way more forethought than Locke is. Just a nice little button on that, oh yeah, that's the smart thing to do. That's what
Man of Science
is going to do. Mm-hmm. The Man of Faith is just going to grab hold of that rope and keep fucking holding on as it's tearing up his palms.
Just jump right in.
It's just a really nice thing they do in the show that, because we know it's the bias of fiction in favor of, Agent Mulder versus Agent Scully. Like the one who believes in the fantastic and the crazy, the unbelievable, that character usually ends up being right because that makes for more compelling television. And the tricky thing for a writer is, okay, how do you make the skeptic not seem like just an idiot or a loser who's just there to get laughed at? And the way that Lost does that is Locke is correct about broadly his view of the island, but he just gets himself into so much trouble because he does not think about any of this stuff in the way that Jack does. That it just doesn't occur to him that, like, oh, there could be somebody with a gun down there, or this thing could, like the smoke monster could attack me. That just his refusal to consider anything outside, it balances nicely against his, him being otherwise correct in kind of the grand scheme of things.
He's otherwise correct, like on a large scale, I think.
I'm saying very large scale, like Destiny, this island is special, all that.
Yes.
He has no idea what the actual nuts and bolts of the island are.
Yeah, and his lack of forethought and consideration, ends up making him wrong. Like he's ultimately wrong about what the island is and why he's there. And two, it gets him killed and gets his body stolen. And, yeah. Again. Poor John Locke. But anyway, the end of this episode sets up the prior meeting of Desmond and Jack, and it gives us another one of those lines that the show became famous for, much like "Live Together, Die Alone." See you in another life, brother. How many of us just went around saying that to other Lost fans after in a bad Scottish dialect after watching this show?
I was trying it for a while.
I didn't have any friends, so.
Oh.
But really, I didn't.
Well, then we just need to plop you down on a desert island in the middle of nowhere, and
Oh, don't threaten me with a good time.
you're never mind. You're too afraid of plane crashes. That would be like your worst nightmare.
Listen.
I mean, I guess if you survived it, it wouldn't be so bad.
But I would have nightmares.
You would, but then you'd meet a nice Scotsman.
Yeah.
And I could live in a bunker?
A bunker.
Yeah.
But first, you'd have to live on a beach for a little while, and that I know you.
Yeah, I'm an inside cat. We all know.
Yeah.
I think all three of us are indoor cats.
Yeah.
But yeah, seeing another life, brother. Classic.
It also kind of plays into the "are they dead," thing.
That's a good point. I wrote down one of those for later. But yeah, seeing another life, brother. That's a nice call.
Yeah.
Nice, Cara.
Yay, get one.
Yeah, you get one of those occasionally.
Every once in a while.
All right, moving on. Well, is there anything? Yeah, go ahead.
So one note about the numbers, they're going to play up a lot more in the next few episodes, but there is a subtle one. Adam Rutherford, when he dies in the OR, his time of death is called at 8:15.
Yep.
Yeah, I just stopped noting all of those because
We're about to hit the point where it's going to become just a waterfall, but that was the last one, and that I just wanted to. That's clever.
yeah, after Hurley's last episode, where they established the numbers, now anytime anybody needs a number on this show, it's going to be one of them. But yeah, I started to take that note, and then I went, no, that's going to be the entirety of the notes from now on if I do that. Cara, do you have any final thoughts about episode 1, Man of Science, Man of Faith?
No, but I have been so excited to get to this season. Like, this is the season that solidified it for me. Because it just got so freaking crazy, and I just had no idea where the hell we were going. But I was glad to go along for the ride.
The same, and I had mentioned to Robert a while back, I think, like, in my memory of the show, I think season 2 was the best. So I'm going to be interested to see if that estimation holds up as we get farther along, or if, like, I find one of the other seasons better.
My memory is that seasons 4 through 6, where they really like put the pedal down on plot, and every episode is just burning through stories so fast that it's just exhilarating. I think season 4 is the one that I still like look back on in the highest esteem. But honestly, season 1 held up a lot better than I was expecting, which I remember it fondly. But I was just like, man, there is so much that is so good here. And I'm looking forward to seeing the same of that with season 2.
Yeah, especially since season 1 really does get off on a rocky start. I get how people watching it for the first time now, 20 years later, might not be able to get as into it, because like we spent a long time talking about how melodramatic it is, how cliche those first few episodes are, before you really start getting into the meaty part of the show, which is where we're at now, and that doesn't slow down. Well, it does slow down a bit in season 3.
Yeah, season 3, because everybody's got to have a love triangle.
And they kill off part of the love quadrangle here at the end of this season. Episode 202, Adrift. This is a Michael episode, which seems odd for the second episode of the season.
So I actually read up on that. Apparently, it was initially going to be a Sawyer episode that we talked about on the podcast of Sawyer's second episode in season 1. There's a reference to the Tampa job being some con he was on that went bad. Initially, the plan was for it to be that. It was going to be a flashback to when Sawyer did that. And you watch it, and it kind of makes sense, because there are a lot of beats for Sawyer, like when he's pulling the gun out, or when he's, using his analysis skills to figure out that the boat of the others came from the island. The producers said apparently they started even filming some of the flashbacks, and it just wasn't working. They were like, we don't have this story quite right. So they kind of quickly retooled it as a Michael episode, which is why his whole thing takes place in a park and a lawyer's office. So it was and it's just a small cast of actors who'd been on there before, people wanted to be in 1 or 2 scenes. So yeah, if it seems weird, it's because that was a very last minute change.
Yeah, that makes sense. But it does bring back, I'm sure everyone missed Michael screaming Walt.
Oh, I've never wanted to punch a fake person in the face more than I want to punch that man.
I get it.
2. You get 2. How about that? 2.
I understand the impetus here. You're devastated that your son has been kidnapped. Yes. But after a certain point, you start getting, you reach the point of diminishing returns on screaming Walt and empathy.
If you don't know that it's going to just become a thing, if we were just watching this episode completely fresh, it wouldn't be so bad, because it's like this is minutes after, his son was yanked out of his arms and he was thrown into the ocean by an explosion. Like, fair. But yeah, just knowing that that's going to be like 40% of every piece of dialogue they give him for the rest of his time on this season.
And not just that, but this also gives us the first, they took my son, they took my boy, and all the variations on that, which is going to make up the other, 60% of his dialogue.
Which is really frustrating, because after finding Michael and Walt's story in season 1 to be one of the most, affecting and heartwarming aspects, it's going to be something that I look at and I just think, man, what if they decided to let Michael, still be driven by a desire to recover Walt, but not be broken by it, to not just be like this kind of screaming, half-cocked, crazy guy. Man, how interesting that could have been. Mm-hmm. But they didn't, and that's why Harold Perrineau is not going to be on the show too much longer.
Yeah, unfortunately. There's a lot of medical inconsistencies with this episode. That's.
What are you talking about?
Well, during this introduction, this pickup from where we left off with the explosion on the raft and Walt's kidnapping, Sawyer has to swim over and rescue Michael, because you can only float there screaming Walt for so long before the current pulls you under, and revives him by doing the tried and true punching him in the chest.
Man, I love that trope.
I made a joke about how, maybe Jack should have spent some of those 44 days giving out, basic first aid lessons to everybody, but given that that's how we saw him do CPR on Charlie, maybe he did, and this is Sawyer applying what he learned.
Hey, that's a good point.
Yeah.
He's just, giving them all bricks, and he's like, when you break this, that's when you've been able to revive someone.
I fear the day when, I'm in a situation where I see somebody have to give somebody else CPR and they just start pounding on the person's chest, because I'm gonna have to stop them and be like, bro, you're
not helping.
You're not helping, and arguably you're hurting them further.
I mean, if they're dead, I guess you're not.
I mean, yeah, because in most of these scenarios, you punch the person back to life, so you're not actively performing CPR. You're pounding on you're pounding on the chest of a dead person.
It's overall not a great episode for depictions of life-saving medicine, because jumping back to the last episode, Adam Rutherford dies and they just immediately call it, and they don't
punch his chest.
Yeah, my understanding it's like in a hospital, somebody dies, you try to resuscitate them, you do CPR, you're just
Yeah, they're just nope, he's dead. Bye.
I ain't got 15 seconds to spend on that. It's just, yeah.
Or shock him with the paddles.
So yeah, this Lost is great about many things. It is not a show that anybody should look to for guidance on emergency medical treatments.
You watched ER for that.
And and of course after the CPR, we get Sawyer's other great medical contribution.
Oh God.
Yeah, you can't just reach into your own bullet hole and pull it out with your fingers.
But why? But they're right next to each other. You can just stick them both in the hole, and then you just grab that bullet somehow, and then you yank. It's totally doable.
Yeah. First of all, how did he get a grip on the bloody bullet lodged inside of his flesh?
Well, I'm assuming that he probably had to, I don't know, rip open that wound a little bit further to get his 2 giant fingers in there.
He made it considerably worse.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
to the show's credit, we will see what happens when you stick your grimy, saltwatery fingers inside of a wound in the next couple of episodes.
Yeah, I feel like we should have seen those results a lot sooner, like within minutes of him doing that.
It did seem like it just gave up and stopped bleeding on its own, which, yeah, I guess Sawyer won a contest of wills with his own arteries.
Yeah, that's something that has bothered me for 15 years now. Is 16 years at this point. Just Sawyer casually, and the actor is trying to do his best here of like, oh God, pulling a bullet out of my own wound hurts, but come on.
We're going to hear so much agonized screaming from Josh Holloway over the run of this show. That's, this is one of the less memorable instances.
Yeah.
That's his version of Walt.
Well, this is the first episode where we get a mention of the Dharma Initiative. It gets name dropped for the first time when Locke, not even like via the logo, when Locke sees a poster for it in the hatch bunker. Which kicks off another one of those mysteries this show is famous for. What the hell is the Dharma Initiative?
What's really interesting about it is that you have, obviously, the story of the Dharma Initiative on the island is a big part of the next couple of seasons and what happened to them. It was also, I guess y'all weren't watching it as it aired, but did y'all know about like the Lost alternate reality game?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm.
So there were like websites you could go to and like ads that would like commercials that would play during the show that would like point you to different areas. But people could basically go to websites and they'd like look in the code, and there were just all these little puzzle pieces and clues all over the internet that took you through like the backstory of the Dharma Initiative, of like its founding and this mysterious guy. The creators were kind of specific. We're like, we don't want this to be something you have to do to know what's going on in the show, but it's kind of interesting just to read up on. There's a lot of kind of neat additional lore there.
I'll go read that.
Yeah, they also buried some of it in the video game that came out around that time.
Yeah, Diadomus.
That's right. Yeah. I can't remember if it's this episode or if the shark the shark gets shot dead, so it doesn't reappear.
Yes.
Yeah, but the shark has
a Dharma logo on it. I was looking.
What?
Yes.
Yeah, I was looking too, and I didn't catch it. But apparently, in a freeze frame, you can see that on the tail, it's got
wow.
Yeah, I was like staring at the screen every time that shark appeared, looking for that logo, so I could be like, guys, look. I couldn't pick it out, but I have seen the screenshots where people have caught like freeze framed it and seen the Dharma logo on its fin.
Oh my
Like
god.
on its tail fin, right?
Dharma shark.
Dharma shark.
Pity the production assistant who had to tattoo that on a shark. I assume they used a real shark for these scenes.
Obviously, I mean that's good marketing right there. It's on your scotch. It's on your fruit cocktail.
And your sharks.
And it's on your sharks.
Watching the sharks swim away at the end of filming. Tell your friends.
Exactly.
I bet you it was tattooed on the polar bear.
Probably, yeah, somewhere on it, underneath its fur. So as if we needed any more confirmation, we find out again in this episode, Michael's ex still a thunder cunt.
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't think of a better way to put it.
No, that's perfect.
Yeah, no, thunder cunt is just the right turn of phrase here.
If you're such a good father, why did you agree to all my previous demands?
Right?
Like it's the worst.
Oh my god, that was infuriating.
Like demanding that he let her take Walt away when he was a baby, and then using the fact that he wasn't around when Walt was a baby as evidence of why he's a bad father.
Yeah. I feel like if we spend too much time talking about it, we're just going to all end up mad. And once again, this actress does a great job of portraying one of the worst people on a show full of bad people. It kind of makes me wish that somehow or another she would have ended up on the island because fucking Anthony Cooper.
I was going to say, imagine her being in the hatch of the hold of the Black Rock when Locke needs to manipulate somebody.
Yeah, I'd have taken that, sure.
Speaking of casting, Saul Rubinek, who plays Michael's lawyer, one of my favorite character actors. I hate that they didn't have a reason to bring him back. He was Unforgiven. He's the Bouchamp, the writer. He was on Warehouse 13. Just wonderful, wonderful performer. But yeah, only gets to show up once on the show.
Yeah, we get 2 episodes with great cameos in them. We'll talk about the next one here in the next episode. Let's see. We talked about the bullet thing. Oh, the as Cara mentioned, the Are They All Dead watch. At one point, Desmond says to Locke, "So the world is still out there," which more fuel for that fire. I'm still not entirely on board with that fan theory, but anyway. There's another instance for you.
Yay.
There's a fun thing in that conversation where, because it's when Locke mentions the 44 days since the plane crash, and Desmond repeats the number and pauses. I don't know if the writers had it, but we do find out that Desmond would have some reason to remember that day.
Yeah, because he runs and he starts going through the printouts.
Yeah.
From that fucking. What do you call that old kind of
dot matrix?
The dot matrix
Yeah.
printer that they've got down there.
Which we haven't talked enough, but the production design on the hatch, just all of the like 80 or the 70s retro technology down there, like the boxes with the spinning reels for next to the computer. Oh my gosh, I love the set of the hatch is so cool.
I would live there.
All the stuff that you have no idea what it does, you just know it's science.
Yeah.
That's the only indicator that you need that science is happening here. Love it. I can't remember which one of us pointed it out, but I made a note of it here. Man, Sawyer shouldn't have shown Michael how to shoot that gun.
It would have been hilarious if he hadn't, and then near the end of the season when Michael turns the gun on Ana Lucia, he has no idea how to get the safety off. And just stands there awkwardly clicking it while she stares at him.
Yeah, the trained police officer who could have just taken it from him and stuck it up his ass.
Whee!
Oh man, that's not going to work out for Ana Lucia or Libby, who we haven't even met yet. But I'm already like, oh right, we got that to look forward to.
Well, it's not actually the same actors, but we do get to see them in kind of shadowed silhouette at the end of this episode.
Yeah, and it made me wonder because Michelle Rodriguez and the actor who plays Echo, whose name I'm not going to butcher,
AAA.
Yeah, let's go with that. They're in the opening credits.
So I think they appear at the end. I think that is them in the shadows, in that awesome shot that closes the episode. One of the moments that just left me gasping when I watched this at the end, like Michael and Sawyer make it back to the beach. Jin comes running out of the jungle with his hands tied behind him, and the only word he can say that they understand is others, 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 and they turn, and you just see what look like zombies walking down the beach towards them. Yeah, so it's 4 people. 2 of them are Michelle Rodriguez and AAA. The other 2 are meant to be Bernard and Libby, but either they hadn't cast them or the actors weren't there yet because it's not actually them.
Yeah. The show is having so much fun teasing out the others because the big buildup throughout half of season 1 is who are the others? What do they want? We get to near the end of the season 1 finale and it's like, oh, there are no others. Maybe Rousseau is full of shit. She's the one who's going out to steal the kid. And then, nope, the others are real. They have a boat and they just kidnapped Walt. And here it's like, oh shit, the others are real. They're on the island. They're coming towards us now. Find out later. No, those aren't the others.
They're the other others.
They're the other others. They're the other 40, or not the other 48. That's the name of the episode. They're the tail section survivors.
They each think the other are the others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we go for like most of the no, it's not too long now before we get to light them up, where we see Mr. Friendly again.
That's at 8 or 9 somewhere in there.
Yeah. So they're teasing this out as long as possible, and I for one am here for it.
Yes.
It's a great way to overall keep building and playing with the mysteries when you don't have to give information, but you just keep using the uncertainty among the characters, and it's something that the show does really well this season.
Any other thoughts about episode 2 before we move on?
I love the little beat where after Kate gets out of where she was tied up and is trying to crawl into the vents, she goes into the pantry and notices a chocolate bar and stops what she's doing, opens it, takes a bite of the first chocolate she's had in months, and then grabs several more bars and stuffs them into her pants before she goes up in the vent. It's a really cute little moment from Evangeline Lilly.
It really is. And yeah, if I had just gone 44 days without having not just chocolate, but any kind of sweet whatsoever, everything they've eaten for the last 44 days has been like salty and probably gamey as hell.
And sea urchins.
And sea urchins, yeah. So I would grab a whole shitload of those candy bars as
I'd have
well.
shoved them all in my mouth right then.
All right, moving on. Cara, did you have any more thoughts about Adrift?
No.
Walt?
Ugh.
He does show up. No, that's in the first episode. Shannon sees Walt in the jungle, like talking backwards and like.
Yeah, I was going to circle back to that, but let's get into that. Knowing what we know, which is that we only, after this batch of 3 episodes, we only have 3 more to go. Like by the time of our next rewatch together and the recording of our next episode, Shannon will be dead.
Aww.
And Cara will be fucking heartbroken over it. So why so early on are we trying to take Shannon in a completely new direction where she may or may not be psychic?
I don't think it has anything to do with her possibly being psychic. I think it's Walt and the ability that the others he has or think he has or whatever. I don't think it's her that's psychic. I think it's probably Walt.
The way I'd see it is that because she's now the closest connected to Vincent, who was previously the closest connected to Walt, that's like a
bridge.
a point through which it comes. But yeah, I don't know. It's like a lot with both Walt and Shannon. We're very close to the writers just kind of throwing up their hands and just shoving the pieces off the board.
Right. Poor Shannon. It's going to be heartbreaking when it happens.
Is it?
All of the other characters, like everyone on the beach gets a couple of scenes. Like there's some arguing about whether or not the others are even real. We get a check-in with Charlie and Claire.
We see that he's got the Virgin Mary statue full of heroin.
Yes, they reestablished that. Nobody really has anything to do for these first 3 episodes other than the A team and then the C team, the SEA team.
No, I mean, you have like a couple of check-in scenes, but it is otherwise mostly just Jack, Locke, Kate, and the Hatch with Sawyer coming in at the end, and then Michael, Sawyer, and Jen with their raft adventures.
It sounds better than 2 guys, a girl, and a pizza place. Let's go ahead and jump into episode 3.
Yay!
Orientation, which starts off with our introduction of another fan favorite character. This season was really hit and miss with their fan favorites and introducing new characters, but here's one of the hits. Mr. Echo.
Oh
and
my God,
his
I love
hard-hitting Jesus stick.
I think we mentioned it at one point, like how much of a much bigger arc Mr. Echo was supposed to have had on this show and how much we wish we could have seen it. But this is where it starts here. Well, it starts at the end of the last episode with him about to whack the hell out of Sawyer with his Jesus stick. But here we get a proper introduction to him. And it doesn't say a word the entire episode. Completely silent. We'll find out why in a few episodes.
I have not smiled that much over an episode. Like I could not stop. I was an idiot.
Here's the thing. It actually threw me off because when he pulls Ana Lucia out of the pit at the end, he asks, who are they? Like he actually asks her.
Yeah, that's right.
It's weird because, otherwise he is this silent figure and they do establish that as a character thing. But yeah, he does weirdly break the silence for a moment at the end. But like I said, great introduction though until that kind of weird point.
Yeah. It's worth mentioning that this is a Locke-centric episode, and in his flashback, we're treated to what should have been the name, in my opinion, now that I'm seeing it written out in my own notes. This should have been the name of a Panic at the Disco or a Fall Out Boy album. Katie Seagal and Terribly Run Support Meetings. We get them both in the same scene. We talked about Saul Rubinek guest starring in episode 2, and here we get the lovely, the inimitable Katie Seagal of Married with Children fame, of Futurama fame, and around this same time of Sons of Anarchy fame.
Wait, what? No. Was this
I think
the same?
This was
God.
2004.
Oh, yeah. So this
2005,
episode came out in 5. Sons started in 2009.
Okay.
So not too far.
Not too far, but I conflate when I started watching Lost with when Sons of Anarchy started. So that's my bad.
Makes sense.
Yeah, we're still like 4 years away from Sons of Anarchy at this point.
And she's still just beautiful. Oh
She is.
All respect to the handsome and talented Terry O'Quinn, but Helen seems like she could do so much better just
really
all the
could.
time.
She likes bald men.
Great.
And apparently they are in short supply.
Let's talk about this. I guess it's a grief counseling or support
I thought it was like
meeting.
anger counseling or.
That's not really established what kind of counseling this is for or what kind of support group this is.
Seems like bad family relationships, maybe.
Their moderator is fucking terrible, but it does give us the greatest television outburst of all time. This girl is telling this heart-wrenching story about how her mother stole $30 from her while Locke is sitting there, and you can see Ontario Quinn's face. Internally, he's screaming.
His toupee is about to catch fire from all the hate he's holding in.
All the fumes coming off of him. You know that he's just inside, he's screaming, "My dad stole my kidney." So he finally goes off on a tear on this poor girl and screams at her, "You want your $30 back? I want my kidney." I want my kidney back.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry though, like that. His character got to live out something I have dreamed of doing to so many people.
Stealing their
at
kidney?
work. Yes, exactly.
Is that why there are constantly empty bags of ice outside of your garage?
Maybe.
I have some questions about what I've seen in your refrigerator now.
Let's go take a walk.
This was supposed to have been a very dramatic moment, and I'm certain that in 2005, in the era of Grey's Anatomy and other television dramas, "You want your $30 back? I want my kidney back" was a banger of a dramatic line. In 2025, the three of us started guffawing at that line. And I'll say it once again just because it's an incredibly written line. "You want your $30 back? I want my kidney back." All right.
I imagine the person running the meeting just went, "Well, nobody's going to top that, so time, everybody."
Yeah. Oh,
in fact, we're disbanding. None of you are ever going to...
you won't find us here next week.
I'm retiring. No one's ever going to top that outburst. What did I get my degree in social work for? But Robert is absolutely right. Helen is too good for this sinful world and definitely way too good for fucking John Locke. I just love her so much.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly after this, in the main timeline down in the hatch, we get confirmation that, oh yeah, there was a door not too terribly far from this hatch is big. Like the bunker, I keep calling it the hatch. The bunker is big, but it's not so big that at some point Locke or Boone or Jack or somebody shouldn't have stumbled upon this door.
So I don't remember. Do we ever see the door?
I was trying to remember that because we see people from the inside coming and going. I'm trying to remember if we ever see
like where it is,
what
in
that
relation?
looks like from the outside. Because
I think we do.
I would have loved it because we see Kate go running out to get Saeed to help fix the computer, and it would have been hilarious if they come back and just pause and go, "Oh," and it's like this 18-foot pure metal, completely uncovered thing, and they're just
the Jurassic Park doors.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, with
okay.
a neon sign with an arrow that says Dharma Bunker, food inside, food and shelter inside.
We actually talked a little bit about the time of the episode, but it's interesting how we see the events of the first episode of Jack going down to the hatch play out basically 3 separate times. First from Jack's perspective, then Locke's perspective, and then finally Kate as she comes and breaks it up. So it's a little weird because they don't normally do that on the main timeline. We have a lot of flashbacks in the show, but this season they do start to do stuff that plays back to things we've already seen or different angles. So it's interesting how that kind of works while, we're seeing Jin and Sawyer and Michael's story just kind of move forward in the same time.
Well, it is weird that episode 2 is a Michael episode, but that's where we get what was happening to Locke in the hatch. Episode 3 is a Locke episode in which we find out what was happening to Kate in the hatch. It's a bold and interesting choice that the show hadn't made before and doesn't really do again after this. You'd expect if they're going to do something with a structure like this, okay, episode 2 would have been the Locke flashback episode, and episode 3 would be a Kate episode. I'm not sure I really can get on board with it. It's just such a weird artistic choice, in my opinion.
Honestly, I mean, the moment where Desmond's holding a gun to Locke's head and Jack's got a gun on him, it's dramatic, but I'm not sure it's so exciting that we need to see like the kaleidoscope of perspectives on it.
We get the orientation video that they watch on the old timey projector that they then have to watch twice. Gives us another classic John Lockeism. We're gonna have to watch that again, which could have been the tagline of this show, but I'm certain there are other Lost shows that have probably done that one already. And it's also our first introduction of a reoccurring character
who gives his name as
Dr. Martin Candle. Is it ever explained why he's going by Dr. Marvin Candle when we later come to find out or we meet him as Dr. Pierre Chang?
I'm trying to remember because I feel like he's got a third one as well when we see the other ones. So I'm not sure what that was about.
They're triplets. What are you talking about?
Okay. I'm here for it.
With different last names, too.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's one of those things that I remember being kind of cool. But yeah, as soon as you asked that question, I was like, I have no idea. Because, while Jack raises the possibility that the whole thing is just a mind game for Desmond, we find out that no, the Dharma Initiative really did want somebody to push that button. And they really, that was the important thing about this. So, yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I loved that character. So when they started the orientation video and I saw him, I went, oh, shit, I forgot. It's Dr. Pierre Marvin Candle? Dr. Marvin Candle? And that's when I remembered, oh, right, there's this whole weird thing going on with him and his aliases. And I'm very curious to see, watching it again, how that plays out and, if there's any meaning to it that I've just forgotten about over time.
We also get our first reference to the incident when the hatch was under construction, which is going to be the title of a certain season finale down the road.
Yeah, and we're going to get to see the causality of it all. I was trying to think of a more interesting way to say that. But, season 5 is going to show us the incident and, again, that snowball effect of how we got here, what led to this moment.
We'll see why Dr. Candle doesn't seem to move his left arm a great deal.
Yep. We find out why when Jack starts leaning in close to the wall, the key to the gun safe around his neck starts hovering towards it. And why I think it's Desmond who mentions getting a funny feeling in his fillings whenever he gets too close to it.
I forgot to mention this at the time, but there's somewhere in the first season, Locke gives Saeed a compass, and Saeed notes that despite being able to establish north just by looking at the sun in the sky, the compass is pointing in a different direction. And the only thing he could come to explain that would be some kind of magnetic anomaly. So they started laying the track for that one pretty early.
Smart. Wow. I had forgotten about that. Holy shit. Had he but known, he probably could have just followed the compass in that direction and ended up at the front door to the hatch.
Could have saved us a lot of dynamite.
A lot of dynamite, probably a few lives. I don't know. We're going to do a jungle run check-in here because,
missed these.
Yep, we get to add Desmond to the list. Desmond's jungle run, not great. He's better on treadmills, I guess, or not treadmills, on his exercise bike.
Or in stadiums.
I was going to say,
well, yeah.
Well,
Because
yeah,
he's pretty badass there.
Yeah, he's fallen off. He hasn't gotten to do that in too long.
Oh yeah, he had to trade stadium stairs for an exercise bike, a Dharma Initiative exercise bike.
Yeah, it's true.
Another great dramatic outburst is when, because Jack recognizes Desmond as soon as he sees his face. Desmond thinks he looks familiar, but it's not till they confront each other while Desmond's running off that he remembers where he knows Jack from. And he's like, oh yeah, you were talking about that woman of yours. What happened to her? And he keeps asking, and Jack just eventually shouts, I married her! And starts crying.
Yeah,
And Desmond gets a great
did not like
so
that.
you're not married to her anymore then.
Yeah, I did not like that reaction from Jack.
No.
God, wrong.
I mean, I get it. Tensions are high. Jack's had a hell of a 24 hours. He hasn't slept. It's already been established that unless Kate is drugging him, he's not getting a whole lot of sleep. So emotions are running high here. I get that. But if I were Desmond and I was like, oh yeah, that girl, what happened to her? And he just screamed at me, I married her, and burst into tears, I'd be like, all right, hands up. That's cool. I'm backing away with my go bag and my gun. You stay over there, brother. But I will point out, it's not Desmond's face that he recognizes. It's
What?
It's his
see you in
brother.
another life, brother.
Oh, yeah, it's when, lower it or I'll blow his damned head off, brother.
Yeah. It's the way he says
I was
brother.
like, what other part of Desmond did he recognize?
His ankles, clearly. I love it's going back a few episodes, but Desmond tries to offer advice on what to do with a sprained ankle to a doctor.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a spinal surgeon. He wouldn't know anything about ankles.
It's true. Just like he wouldn't know the first thing about what's wrong with Locke.
Or how to do CPR.
Or chest punching. Chest punching for everybody.
Don't argue with results.
It worked on Charlie. Okay, well, let's be honest here. In the show, it worked on Charlie,
Yep.
and it worked on Michael. So really, we're 2 for 2 here.
Hey, wait a minute. Maybe that's the special thing about the island. You don't have to do CPR. You just punch him in the...
Yes.
Doing the staying alive rhythm will actually kill someone on the island.
We're off to a great start here with this season. These 3 episodes back to back are fantastic. I'm really looking forward to the next 3 as well, as we find out more about the tail section survivors. We get to meet another fan favorite, Bernard, and Libby is there too.
Yeah.
And in just 3 short episodes for us, one probably about an hour-long episode for our listeners, we'll be saying goodbye to Shannon Rutherford.
Belated reminder, as always, these are not spoiler-free recordings.
Oh, God,
I
no.
think, unless somebody's coming into this show brand new, by the show I mean Long Walk Talks Lost, we're pretty frank about, we're looking at we're talking about the episodes as we watch them, but also the impact of the show as a whole. Man, I love it. I'm ready. I'm excited to get on into it.
I'll bring the champagne.
We decided, so next episode is a Hurley episode. We'll just go ahead and tell the listeners, and I want to try to keep up in case anybody out there listening to this show, of which we do have quite a few listeners around the world, actually. I looked at the map of our listeners. If anyone out there would like to eat along with us, there's got to be a better way to word that.
Have dinner with us?
Yeah.
Dinner and a show?
Not with us,
I don't know.
no.
Or-
Yeah.
You're probably
in
all weird.
Proximity? I don't know.
Go with a similar theme that we're doing. I'm going to try to mention it, what we're doing next time in the episode, because since we're getting a Hurley episode coming up, a Hurley-centric flashback episode, and Hurley worked at the Cluckin' Chicken. Was that the name of it? The chicken.
Mr. Cluck?
Mr. Cluck's. Yeah.
Yeah.
All I can think of is El Pollo Loco.
Yeah.
Pollos Hermanos.
Yes. El Pollo Loco was an actual place in California.
Oh.
Pollos Hermanos is from Breaking Bad, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, got a little off topic there. That's all to say that next week we're going to be eating fried chicken. Because who doesn't love fried chicken? So if you would like to coordinate your meal with us. There we go. Coordinate a meal.
There
that
it
sounds a lot
is.
better.
Triangulate.
Yes, there it is.
No, too far.
We went past it. We were so close. We'll be back next week with the next 3 episodes to talk about the life and times of Shannon Rutherford and how good our fried chicken was.
And how much I celebrated.
Yes, Robert, you have made the transition from Twitter to Blue Sky. If people want to reach out to you online or follow you online, what is your handle on Blue Sky?
I am at RedbeardRob17.
Cara, you're still just lurking on social media. Have you made the jump?
Well, I did move. I did do the Threads thing. I don't. It looks like Instagram to me. I don't really understand what
Threads.
the thing
I've
is.
never really played with it, but it's like if Instagram and Twitter had a baby,
Yeah,
a
yeah,
fucked up flipper baby.
yeah. I mean, I'm on there, so it's the same handle as whatever my Instagram is. History
History
Nerd
Nerd.
1861.
I've been thinking of trying out TikTok, but we're recording this on the 15th, so I may not have much time to do that.
You got 4
Listen.
days to enjoy it.
Don't go down the rabbit hole.
Just gonna go binge TikTok. Just
I've
binge.
lost days of
Yeah,
my life to that
honestly.
app, and I love it.
Same. That's like it's filling the hole that Vine left behind.
Yeah.
Don't do it, Robert. Part of me, honestly, so many people are freaking out and upset to the point where they're running headlong into Chinese apps.
Yeah. Oh, God,
that's-
come on, people.
Teach you to think I'm infected by Chinese government propaganda. What's the official Chinese government social media platform?
I low-key actually do hope TikTok gets banned because that's going to be one less thing for me to waste my fucking time on because I'm a millennial and I have no self-control over my social media habits.
I'm Gen X, and
Also have no control.
I take no responsibility for what the hell I do. I don't know.
Oh,
No,
fair.
I take too much responsibility.
I'm still kicking on Instagram, so you can find me on there at DB Hensley. If you want to keep up with Long Walk Productions, you can visit us online at longwalk.us to see more of our original work or hear past episodes that are no longer streaming. You can follow the YouTube links in the show notes. Thank you very much for listening, and if you enjoy this show or any of the shows on the Long Walk Podcast Network, please make sure to leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening on. And you want your $30 back? I want my kidney back.
Oh.